This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benereofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening? Who are the newsmakers? What's in store for the future? The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. White Plains Week. John Bailey, the Citizen Net reporter, with Jim Benereofe, my partner since 2001 on this show, and Peter Katz, who has been with us since 2007, and he, of course, the anchor for all seasons, and Jim Benereofe, the Dean of Journalism in White Plains, covering the city for many years. And right now, it is time for the headlines.
And here are this week's headlines. Absentee ballots for presidential and congressional races and state offices should have been mailed to you by today. Mail before Election Day. We'll have Peter Katz's in-depth analysis in our ongoing segment, Trump Today and Hillary and Friends. Julie Killian and George Latimer debate on WVOX radio. City sales tax collections show 3.4% increase in first quarter of fiscal year over last year. White Plains Schools Superintendent for Curriculum resigns. Former Woodlands High School assistant principal is sentenced to 1 to 3 years in prison for embezzling $794,895. Millionaire at the Westchester County Airport to get a facelift. Project was approved by county legislature last May. Latest security breach by another National Security Agency employee raises serious doubts about security clearances. Major New York construction company agrees to $9 million fine for inflating bills on major city projects. 15 arrested for running a music business as a drug money laundering operation in Poughkeepsie. White Plains Public Library holds its Saturday evening gala, and the Pet Food Pantry, Westchester's first pet food pantry, holds its gala on Monday. Bob Dylan awarded Nobel Prize for Literature. Chuck Berry, inspiration for the Rolling Stones and other famous rock groups, turns 90 years old, and he's still rocking.
That's right. May we all be as energetic as Chuck Berry. John Bailey, and right now let's go to the White Plains Week Roll of Newsreel March of Time. And today you should have received absentee ballots prior to the election, so you need
that envelope looks like something I used to get from the Reader's Digest.
It's not a sweepstakes mailing, so don't throw it out. That's a very good point.
That's Publishers Clearinghouse.
Boy, that's a format I didn't use. Wow. Right. I used to work for Reader's Digest, ladies and gentlemen, in another time in our life.
And John invented one of the great formats of all time.
Yeah, the IRS envelope.
Simulating an IRS envelope.
Yes, for which I never went to jail.
The recipients really opened that one up.
They really
fast.
did. It was a stroke of genius.
Yeah.
But of course,
that's when the direct mail business was the direct mail business.
You can make
right?
money at it.
Yeah,
that's right. Now, the intriguing thing about the absentees is you have to, it contains the ballot. You have to mark it in just as you do your regular ballots. You fill in the circular you know,
the dot,
holes,
fill in the hole,
right?
yeah, fill in
And
the
then
circle.
you have to sign, you put it in an envelope, seal it and sign it, and then you mail it back in that envelope that we showed you in the first slide. But it's very important to get those absentee ballots back.
Yeah, now around the country, absentee ballots are being mailed back already. Early voting has been taking place. And I'll tell you, it really seems as if we're going to have some decent voter participation this year. Now, it's said that that in the campaign, one of the efforts on the part of the Trump campaign is to drive down voter response to this, because Democrats typically do well when you have a large voter turnout.
Well, that's turnout.
This year, you know, things have been so bizarre in this campaign that there just might be some genuine interest.
Do you think people really are interested in this election still, after all these months and weeks? Why don't you tell us about it in our segment?
I really think so, but,
Yes, right.
You know, the thing is, John, that if we could take some of the interest in this national election and convert it into interest in our local elections, and especially the school board and school budget elections, then we might be able to restore some participatory democracy to White Plains. Right?
In fact, you had an interesting comment that we would reject the results of the next.
Yeah, well, you know,
budget
this week, of course, the big story this week was the debate, the third and final presidential debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump.
This is the beginning of our segment, Hillary and Friends.
And there's the graphic.
That's right.
Ah, that's a new Hillary and Friends portion.
Yes.
That's a picture of her up at Westchester County Airport just before
one of the best pictures
getting
that has
on
ever
board
been
her
shot of
plane.
her.
And I don't know where the Trump picture was taken, but that's the Donald Trump who we typically see out on the campaign trail at his rallies.
Yeah.
But interestingly, this third debate attracted a good, solid television audience. They had anticipated that people would be bored at this point, and that the audience for the third debate would go down. But it actually it held.
And why?
It held
Because
up.
it was well run by Chris Wallace, who did a fantastic job of asking questions on really key issues in a really incisive manner that the candidates could not ignore.
You know, he
did a
really
terrific job.
did do a good job. Some people thought that he would be biased, being from Fox News, which you know, to most people it has an obvious Republican bias. But I thought his questions were not only were they fair straight down the line from a partisan standpoint, but they were very thoughtful, and they brought out some issues which really had not been touched.
Yes,
the
there was some
campaign.
deep breaths by the
We heard about
Yes.
abortion, about the Supreme Court,
right.
and
Social Security.
part of what has happened in the campaign was that some of the things that Donald Trump did were so bizarre and unusual that they captured news cycles, and the campaign drifted away from issues. Is that being too tough on Mr. Trump, do you think, Mr. Benereofe?
I don't know if anybody can be tough enough on Trump. I think that,
Obviously, people haven't been tough enough in the past.
you know, he one of the things he talks about is that the media is biased towards Hillary. But the thing is, what the media has done really is Trump has gotten way, way more coverage than any candidate by a long shot.
It's been said if you put a dollar figure on the news coverage that he got, it would come to something like $3 billion if you had to buy the equivalent airtime. But even in the debate, as it did get into many issues that we hadn't heard covered, Trump managed to dominate the whole theme, and when it was all over, we were back to bizarre behavior by Donald Trump dominating the next news cycle, because when questioned by Chris Wallace, he said that he would not accept the results of this election. He said he would keep us in suspense as to whether he would accept it. And he also, at one point in the debate, used the phrase nasty woman to describe Hillary Clinton.
He also
And-
used another unfortunate phrase,
What did you have in mind there?
bad hombre.
Oh, the hombre, yes, which had overtones of his Mexican
Fixation.
fixation. Well, it's more than a fixation. It's Mexican.
The Mexican
Mexican
syndrome. The
nastiness.
Trump Mexican syndrome.
Let's
it's
call it
called.
nastiness.
TMS, Trump
let's-
Mexican syndrome.
So once again, it was his behavior that managed to dominate rather than issues coming out of the debate. Although, in summary, I think Chris Wallace, of the three debates, I think the one moderated by Chris Wallace was best in terms of substance, most certainly. Trump made the news again just last evening. We're recording this Friday morning. Last evening here in New York was the Al Smith dinner. This is run by the Archdiocese of New York to raise money for charities. Actually, they raised something like $6 million at this event last night. And the featured speakers were Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And it's traditional every 4 years, both candidates come to this dinner.
I bet you they're sorry they invited them.
They sit almost next to each other. They're divided by whoever the Archbishop of New York happens to be at the time. It was Timothy Dolan sat between them last night. They really avoided each other until the very end, where they did do a very quick handshake. But Trump again managed to dominate the news cycle because for the first time in the living memory of just about anyone who has attended this or watched or followed these Al Smith dinners, a presidential candidate speaking was booed. And some of Trump's remarks, what's supposed to happen is that it's supposed to be a relaxed, good-natured display of fellowship.
Sort
You're
of like
supposed
the campaign,
You're supposed to put partisanship, arguing aside. It's anticipated that when you speak at an Al Smith dinner, the humor will be self-deprecating.
Yes.
You will make gentle barbs at your opponent. You will not be serious in your criticism of your opponent. Trump stepped over the line seriously to the extent that members of the audience actually booed him on a couple of occasions. Hillary Clinton, in her speech, stood mostly on the right side of what you're supposed to do. She stepped over the line once or twice in that she engaged in some serious criticism, rather than good-natured needling. I can, let me give you a sample. Some of the stuff was funny. Some of what Trump said was really funny. The jokes were good, and Hillary's jokes were really good. Trump said, referring to Hillary having fairly small crowds compared with his crowds at campaign rallies, he said that Hillary calls this event her largest crowd of the season.
Okay, that's funny.
Yes.
Yes.
He said that the media is against me, Donald Trump, more than ever before. And he said, you want proof? Michelle Obama gives a speech and everyone loves it. It's fantastic. They think it's absolutely great. My wife, Melania, gives the exact same speech and people get on her case. And he says, I don't get it. I don't know why. And
now
of course,
that's funny.
That's funny. It's
Right.
it's a reference to allegations that Melania Trump plagiarized a couple of lines from an old Michelle Obama speech. He said that that he and Hillary have proven that we can actually be civil to each other. In fact, just before taking the dais, Hillary accidentally bumped into me, and she civilly said, "Pardon me," being a reference to a president being able to issue pardons.
I see. Now that's
for crimes.
funny. Right.
It was very funny.
Yes,
it,
right.
it got.
Who's his
it got
writer?
big
We need to
laughs.
get him for
Yeah.
this show. Right.
Hillary said, making reference, to her use of the phrase "basket of deplorables." Hillary said to the audience, "I want to put you all in a basket of adorables."
Not bad
She
for a serious woman.
She told Trump that if at any time you don't like what I'm saying, Donald, just feel free to stand up and shout wrong.
Now that's funny, right? Yes.
It was. She said that that she'll enjoy listening to Mike Pence deny that Trump ever gave his speech.
Now that's funny.
She started off by saying how pleased she was to be at the Al Smith dinner, and that she says, quote, "I took a break from my rigorous nap schedule to be here."
Now that's funny. Now the only thing they didn't do was one of them should have put a pie in the face of the other candidate. This is an old Milton Berle joke with Sammy Davis Jr. that I am taking that's funny line out.
She also said, Hillary also said that it was a treat to be at the Al Smith dinner because she usually charges a lot for speeches like this.
Now that is funny. No pie there. Right.
Yeah. And she said that after having had to be on the debate stage with Donald Trump for what amounted to 4.5 hours, she has the deepest respect for Kellyanne Conway, who is Trump's campaign manager. but then she went on to needle him by saying that Kellyanne Conway, is working day and night for Donald, and because she's a contractor, he's probably not even going to pay her. So.
You know, this is good stuff. It's funnier than any of the debates.
Yeah,
right?
it really was. You know, but
and
again,
she won that one too. Her jokes are very good.
You know, I think the reviews would have been equal. And I think that we would not see this, you know, just as an extension of bizarre behavior by Trump. You know, had he just had the wherewithal, you know, to understand that was not a place to be vicious about your opponent. It's just not done. Just not done.
Well, you know, you can take Donald Trump, but you can't take him out.
You can't take the Trump out of the Donald.
That's true. That's true. But
anyway, so here we are. We're coming up to Election Day. For some people, it just won't be soon enough.
It's 3 weeks, isn't it?
Less than that.
2.5 weeks.
Yeah, so
2.5 weeks.
Give or take.
Remember to vote.
Yep.
As if you could forget.
Vote early and often, as they used to say.
No. We can't do the get into the.
No, but
I don't want to say the R word.
The big serious issue, though, was the issue of voter fraud and fraudulent elections. And to some people, Trump really disqualified himself as being a candidate for president and being fit to hold the office by refusing to agree to accept the results of the election. There was a study done which showed that over 1 billion votes in the past, there were only 31 documented cases of voter fraud.
Well, we shall see what the future brings. Meanwhile, there was another debate on WVOX radio. Julie Killian and Senator George Latimer debated on the radio Wednesday morning, and this came to town. This is a really bitter debate, and George Latimer said that Killian should stop distorting his record with her ads, and he caught her in a lot of errors, which he claimed in her knowledge about the state, whereas Killian said that she was a tough person, that she's been used to being laughed at for years, and she's tired of it. And I thought that was a good thing for her to say. And however, they deferred on sales tax. Mr. Latimer says it should not be extended to all communities, as she says, instead of applied on an individual basis.
I don't understand.
Yeah. No, they had a big argument over hotel taxes.
Oh, hotel taxes,
that's right. And that was one of their controversial issues. But this
Actually,
this
now,
could be a close race. But you don't know.
both of them were interviewed on our program, People to be Heard, and you can still see those
See both of them.
recordings online
Yeah.
on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, on YouTube, and on wpcommunitymedia.org. You just have to look for People to be Heard, and you'll see shows with both of those candidates.
Another thing that Mr. Latimer constantly says, he's out in the neighborhoods, he listens to people's issues, and that's what his job is. But on the other hand, that's what every politician does or wants to appear to be doing. But I am tired of politicians listening and climbing on a bandwagon when the wave of dissent or wave or clamor for change becomes strong enough on one side, and then they're all for it, but they do not take the steps, in my opinion,
You know,
to
John,
do it,
to
fix it.
what
Hold
you're
a hearing on education tests.
what
things
you're
like
saying is, jives with some of the criticism you typically hear of politicians. Two things. They're always testing to see which way the wind is blowing, and they are always trying to take a firm stand without actually letting their feet touch the floor.
Absolutely, and if you continually elect politicians, no matter how nice they are and effective they say they are, things aren't going to change.
But Jim, don't you think that what John just said is actually, to a certain extent, reflected in the rise of Donald Trump?
It is, but what's interesting really about Donald Trump, he has never held public office, and I think every single wealthy candidate that's run before has held public office. Romney was a governor. Well, of course, some of the others that ran. Bloomberg was mayor of New York. He didn't run for president.
Dukakis,
But all of these people have served in government. Trump knows nothing about has no experience with dealing with actual government situations.
Well, you know what's interesting is that just this very morning, Mark Cuban, who is a billionaire businessman, has hinted that he might be interested in running for president in the future.
Emulating the Trump, and Mr. Trump may be going into the
and a lot of
business,
people have suggested that if Michael Bloomberg were on the Republican ticket, he would not have any trouble being elected president. In fact, remember, even in this campaign, Bloomberg had looked at the possibility of doing a third-party candidacy.
Well, I'm going to say some stuff now that's going to be real controversial.
Please.
I think that they have to have an age requirement for running for president. We have an age requirement on the lower end.
You mean a limit, an upper limit?
An upper limit. I don't think that anybody that is over the age of 62 should be running for president. I don't think they have the stamina. I don't think they have any of that. And the presidents we've had, the last couple, Bush and Obama, have been relatively, I don't know how old Bush was offhand, but they've been relatively young men. It's a tough job. And I wrote an editorial on Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders and I are roughly the same age. And there is no way that he's going to withstand the pressures of being president, health-wise. It's not going to happen.
All right. Well, there you have it. Should there be an upper term limit? Senior citizens, what do you say? Let us know. Okay. Now, quickly now, in the last couple of minutes, the sales tax collections showed a 3.25% increase in the first quarter, and there it is, a nice almost $5 million in September. That's July, August, and September, and the sales tax is up 3.4%. 12.8 million this year compared to 12.4 last year.
And let's hope it holds up during the
continues.
holiday shopping
Right.
season.
Right. The former Woodlands High School assistant principal is sentenced to 1 to 3 years in prison for embezzling $794,000, and he will 1 to 3 years. Millionaire. No, wait. Millionaire is building a new FBO at the airport.
It's called a fixed base operator. This is places where you go. If you fly into an airport, you park your plane there, you buy fuel there, you have all sorts of services available. Some of them do maintenance on aircraft. There are a few of them at Westchester County Airport. Millionaire is one of the operations there, and they are expanding their facility. This is a rendition of what the finished building will look like. They just had a groundbreaking this week. It's supposed to be something like an $80 million project. By the time it's done, it'll give them the capability, in theory, to handle almost the largest of the large aircraft, up to Boeing 757s and large Airbuses.
And presidents, right?
Actually, when Air Force One flies in to Westchester, they use a 757, and it is parked not in an FBO, it's parked in a secured area,
right.
a remote area of the airport.
Now, Jessica O'Donovan, the assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, shown on the left, being interviewed by Jim Benereofe on People to Be Heard last year, resigned this week. She is leaving the area, and
her husband took a job
he did.
Out of state.
Excellent job that they felt he could not pass up, and she will be working with the district through December 31st.
Question is, what are they going to do to replace her? Will they promote from within, or will they go searching for someone from outside?
I think they're searching. But we have an interim superintendent, too. Who's going to make the call? Is Dr. Freed going to orchestrate things from his recovery area?
Or will the interim superintendent decide?
Yes.
Interesting.
Now, the latest security breach by the National Security Agency has released the country's top hacking tools. But the question is, the fellow that is being questioned by the FBI about this breach just sort of took thousands of documents home. We don't know how or whatever.
This is a government employee who supposedly released some tools that government computer programmers developed and use in anti-hacking. Okay.
Right. Now, the White Plains Public Library holds its gala Saturday evening, and the Pet Food Pantry, Westchester's pet food charity, holds a gala.
The Library
Monday
Foundation, of course, is at the library, and I guess you can get tickets at the door.
The event is taking place at the Congregation Colomie. The ground floor of the library is under construction. Reconstruction.
Right.
Now, I'm glad I made that error, and we found out the real story here.
It's what is known as, focusing attention on
the Hudson Valley Pet Food Pantry event is at the Women's Club. And I know tickets for that are available at the door on Monday night.
Quickly, Bob Dylan awarded Nobel Prize for Literature, and Chuck Berry, the inspiration for the Rolling Stones, turned 90 years old, and he's launching a new album in January. The great, never to be forgotten, Chuck Berry, who's still playing. John Bailey, Jim Benereofe, Peter Katz. Good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.